You've just been born in 15th century China. And oh no, you're a girl. Your parents are dirt poor farmers and see you less as a daughter and more as a pretty goat they can trade when the harvest fails. And you are pretty, which turns out to be both your greatest asset and your worst curse. See, in this world, beauty isn't freedom. You'll learn that soon enough. Your first few years are a blur of cracked mud floors, stale rice, and your mother telling you to keep your face clean. Not because she cares about your hygiene, but because the cleaner you look, the more likely some wandering official will notice you. And then, one does. One spring morning when you're 14, a pale, plump court eunuch in royal attire comes sauntering down the dirt roads in boots that cost more than your father will ever make in his lifetime. He eyes you like the way a butcher eyes a pig, lifts your chin, checks your teeth, inspects your hair, then he nods. Before you can blink, your father's already bowing so low he's practically eating dirt, and your mother's weeping into her sleeve. Half from grief, half from relief that you're someone else's problem. You're loaded into an ox cart, wrapped in a scratchy blanket. Congratulations! From mud floor to palace property in a single morning. Your parents don't wave. Wouldn't want to look too happy about the bargain. First stop at the palace? The eunuchs strip you bare in a marble bath chamber that reeks of rotting petals and incense. They dump you in a basin of flower water so pungent it burns the cuts on your ankles. Thin hands scrape the dirt from your back and scalp. Then they shave your hairline up high. The court's idea of beauty. One of them clicks his tongue and says you're too skinny for the emperor's taste. Nothing but bones to cradle in air. Cool. Guess that means they'll stuff you up with pastries, sweet rice cakes, pork broth, all the things you used to dream about while gnawing on bony chicken legs back home. You eat like you're storing up for a siege, but there's no such thing as a free meal here. You're not here to get fat and happy. You're here to be plumped up, painted, and wrapped in silk like a prize pig for the emperor. One wrong glance, one rumor, and you'll find your neck under a blade before your next meal digests. Fun, right? From dawn to dusk, you're trained like an obedient lapdog. How to speak, how to bow so low your spine aches, how to lower your gaze when someone above your station so much as breathes in your direction. You learn the 1001 rules for how to survive the court. Never turn your back to an older concubine. Never speak when the empress is present unless spoken to. Never eat more than you're served, but always look grateful. Never talk about your family, even if you could remember them clearly. Not that you would.
Nope.
They sold you for less than a bag of salt. But that's not even the worst part of court life. Your feet, crushed and bound until your bones snap and heel crooked. A brutal, calculated custom for girls like you, especially concubines. Looking delicate is everything, and good luck trying to run off. Every step feels like you're walking on knives. But you're not alone in this suffering, of course. The palace is stuffed to the rafters with other girls just like you. Some born to noble families, some snatched up like stray kittens, all clawing at the same invisible ladder. Step out of line and you don't get a second chance. One girl in your training dorm giggles when her Imperial Highness trips on the palace steps. Next day, she's gone. Rumor is she's scrubbing the latrines near the stables. The polite rumor, anyway. A few years slip by. You're 18 when they herd you into the selection hall, a line of silk-wrapped offerings with sweat sticking your sleeves to your skin. The emperor strolls past you like he's picking fruit at a market stall. Some look too eager, or not eager enough. He barely pauses at each girl. Nope, not likely. Yikes. You? You just stand there, eyes down, heart pounding like a drum. He flicks your chin up with one pale finger. This one. You keep your eyes down as they drag you off. Congrats. You're officially the emperor's property. The older concubines roll their eyes behind jeweled fans. And so begins your new career. Soft silks, low bows from the servants, jasmine-scented baths. The royal perks look good, until you remember the pressure is on. Bear a child, or else. A court physician pinches your wrists, presses a cold palm to your belly 3 times a month and swears raw eggs and deer antler wine will make your womb cooperative. Your meals are weighed out to the last grain of rice. And the emperor? You're just a body to him, not a person. Something to be used until you're no longer useful. Some days you catch your reflection and don't even recognize the girl staring back. It's all pressure. From the emperor, from the other girls, from the walls themselves. One bad glance, one rumor in the wrong ear. That's all it takes. Some nights you think about getting out, slipping past the palace lanterns, disappearing into the dark. But with your feet, you'd never make it past the gates. They'd save you the trouble of packing by separating your pretty head from the rest of your body. Ever seen a fertile concubine retire? Exactly. If you're lucky, you might bear him a son. If you're unlucky, you're just another name in the court registry, destined to fade. Or worse. Now you're really starting to hate it. But you also hate the thought of being invisible again, which brings you to the worst part of your time in the palace. Hope. A few months later, the nausea hits every morning like a truck, and your belly starts to swell. You're pregnant. For a moment, you believe this will save you. You dream of your child swaddled in gold silk, little shoes, a tiny voice calling you mother. You give birth and it's a girl. Not ideal for you. Definitely not ideal for her. But hey, she's the emperor's proof that you're fertile, which means you're worth something. For now. Now the hallways come with side eyes, fake smiles, and hissing. The other concubines hate you, and they hate your daughter even more. So you hold her close, as if your arms could shield her from the palace. For 3 short years, she's the only good thing you have. Then one night after tea, she starts to cough. The fever creeps in. You beg the court doctors, slip coins to the maids, whisper prayers to every ancestor you can think of. The doctors blame the wind spirits, but deep down you know better. One night she's curled up in your arms. The next, she's gone. And with her goes the last bit of you that bothered trying to be good. You should have stayed quiet, smiled sweetly, taken what was given. But grief has a funny way of turning fear into fury. You don't know who did it, just that it was one of them. So you do the reasonable thing. Torch the whole harem of rival concubines. Metaphorically, of course. You whisper to the right eunuchs. Slip silk pouches heavy with silver to the maids. You smile when the empress passes. All while your spies slide through corridors like shadows. One rival is caught with forbidden herbs under her pillow. Banished to the cold palace, where unwanted concubines rot behind locked doors. Another, you tip off the guards about her midnight visits with a handsome soldier. By sunrise, she's hanging in the courtyard for everyone to see. Over the years, more and more rivals vanish. Poison in their tea, a tumble from a garden terrace, a silk scarf forgotten in the emperor's chambers. They drop like flies. The palace whispers it's bad luck. You call it justice for your daughter. And the emperor? With so many rivals gone, you're back in his favor. And soon enough, at 23, you're pregnant again. You bear him a son this time. Now you're untouchable. Or, so you think. Your courtyard's double. Servants drape you in precious necklaces and jade hairpins. The other girls bow so low you can't see their painted faces. If looks could kill, the empress would have your head on a spike. Your son is often whisked away to be tutored and fussed over by court nurses. But he's still yours, and they all know it. He grows charming, clever, and loyal to you. He learns how to hold a brush, then a sword, then secrets he's not supposed to know. He watches the crown prince, the empress's sickly heir, coughing blood into silk handkerchiefs. He knows that if the heir goes, The emperor will pick from the concubine sons. You tell yourself it's all for him, but by now, you know it's for you too. At 39, the whispers start. After everything you've done, they're starting to piece it together. Oops. One concubine tells anyone who will listen that you're a witch. Because the crown prince coughs blood, your boy's perfectly healthy, and the emperor looks grayer by the week. Insulting, really. Like you couldn't have pulled this off without a little black magic. You'd roll your eyes, but you know how this place works. It's all too likely your head will roll instead. Luck's fine, until they decide it's witchcraft. After all, you're one of the last original concubines still standing. And that's suspicious when so many others have vanished. Word spreads fast, and suddenly everyone's got a story about your spells and secret poisons. Months slip by while your allies disappear, and the stares get colder. You plead your case to the emperor, but he won't even let you finish your sentence. He's older now, fragile, suspicious. You see it in his pinched face. He's convinced you're the shadow draining his life away, just to get your son on the throne. Turns out the palace still has a few knives left for your back. They gather at dawn, whisper in the right ears, slip the right bribes, and by dusk, the emperor's seal is stamped on your fate. No more gardens and courtyards, no more gold pens, no more bowing heads. They drag you to the cold palace, the same damp stone cage you sent so many rivals to rot in. Now it's yours. Hope you like drafty rooms, rats for company, and the world's worst room service. Congrats. You've officially come full circle. And your son? He keeps his head. But he's stuck being the boy with the witch mother. Not exactly the legacy you planned. But that's court life for you. Eat or be eaten. So yeah, it sucks to be a concubine. You're born in Rome, 126 AD. And congratulations! You've just entered the world as property. Your mother is a wet nurse, which means she's valuable enough to keep alive and fed, but not valuable enough to keep her own children. You're pulled from her breast within hours, so she can get back to work feeding someone else's baby. You spend your first years being raised by other slaves. Think of it as ancient Rome's version of communal childcare, except nobody's doing it by choice. By age 5, you're old enough to understand the household hierarchy. At the top are the domini, the master and mistress who own everything, including you. Below them are the freed slaves, then the skilled slaves, then the general laborers, and at a special tier all your own, the wet nurses and the girls being groomed to replace them. Lucky you. You're not educated like a scribe's child might be. Instead, you're constantly monitored. Every few weeks, an older slave woman checks your weight, your health, examines your chest for early signs of development. She asks if you've started bleeding yet. She makes notes on a wax tablet that gets reviewed by the household steward. The message is crystal clear. Your value depends entirely on your ability to get pregnant and produce milk. You hit puberty around 13, which means the real monitoring begins. Congratulations, you're now a walking milk factory in development. Your diet gets adjusted. More protein, more milk, fewer acidic foods. You're given lighter work duties and assigned a sleeping area closer to the other potential wet nurses, away from anyone who might distract you from your sacred calling of future lactation. This is when you meet Marcus, a field slave who gets rotated into household duties. You start talking during meals. After a few months, your master notices the attachment and decides it could serve his interests. They graciously allow you to contubernum, an informal slave marriage. Quick ceremony, iron rings, and a borrowed white tunic. How romantic. For a few months, you almost forget this arrangement exists purely for their benefit. Almost. The pregnancy happens naturally. Thank the gods for small mercies. Some wet nurse candidates get assigned breeding partners based purely on physical compatibility, or worse. But you get to conceive a child with someone you actually care about. You give birth after 9 months of knowing exactly how this will end. The baby is healthy, perfect, and yours for approximately 18 hours. Then she's taken to be raised by other slaves, while you're cleaning up and presented to the Cornelius family, whose newborn son needs a wet nurse. Upper-class Roman women rarely nursed their own children. It was considered undignified, and more importantly, it would delay their ability to conceive again and produce more heirs. So they outsourced motherhood to women like you. This is where you're supposed to feel honored. The Cornelius family is wealthy, connected, and influential. But you're not allowed to grieve for the daughter you'll probably never see again. You're not allowed to ask questions about her welfare. Your job is to transfer all that maternal energy to the Cornelius baby, to love him like your own child, while never forgetting that he's definitely not yours. The nursing routine becomes your entire existence. Your diet becomes even more controlled. No garlic, no onions, no wine that might affect milk flavor. Every aspect of your behavior gets monitored to keep you calm and productive. A full night's sleep becomes a luxury for the wealthy. You're up at 2 a.m. for feeding, then 3 a.m., then 6 a.m. You've learned to sleep in increments, snatching rest between the baby's demands. And Marcus, your husband, he's immediately transferred to field work. Wet nurses can't have husbands interfering with their milk production or emotional focus. Days turn to weeks. The distance between you and your little family grows with each passing day, each feeding, each sleepless night. Naturally, you develop genuine affection for the Cornelius child. How could you not? You spend more time with him than anyone else does, including his actual parents, who have other priorities. You feed him, soothe him, hold him when he sleeps. But you're constantly reminded that this bond is temporary and one-sided. You're not his mother. You're just his wet nurse. After 18 months, the child is weaned and you're reassigned. The first separation is devastating. Another child you've grown to love, gone forever. But by the second household, the Flavius family, you're learning to manage the attachment. By the third, you've developed what might be called professional distance. You still care for each child, but you've learned not to completely shatter when it's time to move on. The pattern repeats for over 20 years. You nurse children across different households, moving from family to family. Each assignment lasts 12 to 18 months. You learn to love efficiently and let go cleanly. It's a skill set nobody puts on their resume. But something unexpected begins to happen. The Cornelius boy never gets sick. He walks at 10 months, speaks in full sentences before his second birthday. Maybe it's the extra protein in your diet. Maybe it's the fact that, unlike most wet nurses, you're actually in good health. Or maybe the rich just love a good myth. Either way, word spreads. When the next child you nurse, from the Flavius family, shows the same freakishly early development, people start whispering. By your third assignment, Partician families are competing for you. They offer extra payments to your owners, send gifts of fine food to support your milk quality, and try to outbid each other for your services. You're no longer just a wet nurse. You're the wet nurse, the one everyone wants. For the first time in your life, you have something resembling power. Not freedom, don't get ahead of yourself, but leverage. Your owners begin offering small tokens of appreciation, upgrading your quarters with plush bedding and modest comforts. You're still property, but you're valuable property, and everyone knows it. This continues for over 15 years. You're at the peak of your profession, moving between the most prestigious households in Rome. Senators' wives send personal requests. You have your pick of assignments. your own small retinue of servants to attend to your needs. Then around age 43, you notice the first signs. Your milk production starts to waver. Some days are fine. Others, you struggle to meet the child's needs. You try to hide it at first, adjusting your diet, drinking more fluids, anything to maintain the flow that's been your ticket to the good life. But biology doesn't negotiate. By 44, your milk production stops completely. You've just lost the only skill that made you valuable. And it's not like you have a 401k to fall back on. You're reassigned to household duties, scrubbing floors, emptying chamber pots, hauling firewood, washing linens. All the work you've been exempt from for 2 decades. The transition is brutal. For over 20 years, you were specialized labor with status and comfort. Now you're doing whatever nobody else wants to do. You move from your comfortable private room back to the general slave quarters, sleeping in a space you share with 6 other women. The food goes back to basic rations. The small luxuries disappear overnight. Your body, soft from years of good treatment, struggles with the physical demands. Your body aches constantly. Your hands crack and bleed. You realize just how grueling the traditional slave's life really was, and how much you'd forgotten during your years of relative privilege. The years crawl by. Your hair turns gray, then white. Your spine curves from decades of labor, first from nursing, then from scrubbing floors. At 62, you're ancient by slave standards. One winter morning, you're scrubbing the entry hall when a soft voice makes you freeze. A woman is asking about someone who might have worked here many years ago. You straighten up slowly, your old joints protesting. The woman standing before you has your eyes. She looks to be in her 30s, about the right age. She's well dressed, confident, and free. Your heart pounds, but you don't dare let yourself hope. She explains that her mother was a wet nurse here, someone about your age now. Her eyes study your face with growing recognition. When she smiles nervously, you see Marcus in that expression. Your voice comes out as barely a whisper. What was her name? She doesn't know. She was taken from her mother when she was just hours old, but she's been searching for years. She earned her freedom, married well, and now has the means to find her mother, or to buy her freedom if she's still alive. You drop the scrub brush, your hands shaking. She's alive, you manage to say. She's right here. The reunion is everything and nothing you imagined. She helps you to your feet, holds you while you both cry, and within hours, she's negotiating your freedom with your master. The transaction takes 3 days. A small fortune to you, pocket change to her. For the first time in your life, you walk out of a Roman household as a free woman. Your daughter takes you to her home, a modest but comfortable house with a garden where you can sit in the sun. For 8 months, you live as a free woman with your family. You die peacefully in your sleep on a warm spring morning, your daughter holding your hand. It sucked to be a wet nurse slave in ancient Rome. But then again, it sucked to be any kind of slave in ancient Rome. But hey, at least you got 23 years of relative privilege, 8 months of true freedom, and a daughter who never forgot you existed. In the end, the most important bond of all found its way back to you. A far better ending than most Roman slaves ever get. You're born a girl in medieval Europe. Congratulations, you've already lost the lottery. Your mother dies bringing you into this world. Not exactly rare, since it happens to 1 in 3 women. You start life as both a burden and a living receipt for what it costs. Lucky you. Your father remarries within 3 months. After all, someone's got to cook the meals and keep the kids alive. Your days growing up are simple. Wake before dawn, help your stepmother cook breakfast, wash laundry, milk the goats, cook dinner, collapse into bed. Your brothers learn to ride horses and play with wooden swords, while you scrub floors. Your stepmother does teach you useful skills though, mostly because she needs the help. Not reading or writing, that's for priests and noble boys. The village is poor, the doctor's expensive, and someone needs to patch up scraped knees and soothe coughs when the weather turns. So you help, first by fetching herbs, then by mixing tonics, and eventually by helping her tend to villagers when half of them fall sick with flu. She shows you which herbs stop bleeding, which ones clean wounds, which ones ease pain. Before long, the village starts calling on you for help with small injuries and seasonal fevers. Nothing official, just the kind of things no one wants to bother a real doctor with. By 14, your childhood ends abruptly. No more helping your stepmother in the garden and playing doctor. Your father has betrothed you to a man twice your age, who owns 20 acres of land and smells like cattle. Marriage isn't about love or consent. It's about merging properties and producing heirs. Your wedding takes place outside the church doors, because in medieval Europe, marriage is considered a legal transaction, not a holy sacrament. It's less a romantic union and more a livestock auction with extra steps. You stand there in a stiff linen dress while everyone stares. Your father hands you over like a title deed, and your new husband grins like he just bought a prize cow. The best man stands nearby, and his actual job description is to prevent you from running away during the ceremony. Not kidding. That's why he's there. Then comes the wedding night. You'd think your first night as a married couple would be private? Think again. The wedding guests will be staying to witness the consummation. Nothing says romance like a crowd of drunk spectators. Off to a great start. You're his property now, same as his plow or his horse, except you're expected to cook dinner and bear children. Your new husband makes his expectations clear from day one. Breakfast better be ready next time I wake up, he grunts over his morning meal. And I don't want to see the floor dirty again. He's not cruel by medieval standards, but he treats you like a servant who happens to share his bed. You learn quickly. That burnt bread means going hungry yourself, and that speaking out of turn leaves you explaining to neighbors why you walked into a door. You learn to swallow your words along with your pride, calculating which battles are worth the bruises. There's nowhere to turn for help. You have no legal identity, no right to defend yourself, no escape through divorce. Marriage truly is until death do you part, and given the mortality rates, that might not take as long as you think. The years that follow blur together in a cycle of pregnancy, childbirth with no anesthesia, nursing, and recovering just long enough to get pregnant again. This is your life now. Your body becomes a factory for producing heirs. At 24, your fifth pregnancy nearly destroys you. The labor lasts 2 days, and you lose so much blood that the midwife starts whispering prayers she usually saves for the dying. You can feel your life draining away with each contraction, your vision going dark at the edges. But somehow, impossibly, you survive. And this time, finally, it's a boy. Your husband is thrilled. He celebrates with the neighbors and brags about finally getting an heir out of you. 3 weeks later, he starts coughing. It's just a small cough at first, barely noticeable, but it grows deeper and more frequent. Within a few days, he's struggling to catch his breath between fits. Then comes the blood. Just flecks at first, then alarming red streaks. The fever follows, burning so hot you can feel the heat radiating from his skin whenever you bring him water. For 5 agonizing days, you tend to a man who grows weaker by the hour, his breathing becoming more labored, his skin growing pale and clammy. On the 6th morning, you enter his room with broth to find him still and silent. Suddenly, you're all alone. But for once, not powerless. As a widow who bore a male heir, you inherit everything: the land, the house, the livestock, the debts, and most importantly, your legal independence. This is crucial. Had you only produced daughters before his death, you'd be facing an entirely different fate. Without a male heir, his property would pass to his nearest male relative, leaving you with maybe a third of the estate, and facing forced remarriage within months. The difference between bearing sons and daughters isn't just preference, it's the difference between independence and destitution. For the first time in your life, you can make decisions without asking permission. You teach yourself to read using your late husband's ledgers, and expand your herb garden beyond basic healing plants. Your knowledge grows, along with your confidence, and local women start coming to you first when they're sick. Word continues spreading about your treatments, and your reputation grows. Soon, you're not just the village healer. You're running a profitable business. You hire servants to handle the household work while you focus on your craft.
Your house transforms from a humble household
into something approaching prosperity. By 35, you've built something extraordinary from nothing. The comforts you can now afford would have seemed impossible in your childhood. Heated baths instead of a freezing river, feather pillows instead of straw, aged wine, soft linens, all earned through your own skill and labor. Your children have shoes that fit, clean clothes when they need them, and enough food that they never go to bed hungry. For the first time in your life, you're genuinely happy. You wake up each morning excited about the day ahead, proud of the work you do, and the independence you've built. And with success comes status. Even the wealthy start choosing you over expensive doctors. Nobles start sending gifts with their orders. Silk from a baron's wife whose headaches you cured. Silver earrings from a merchant's daughter. A leather-bound book from a grateful lord. Not bad for a woman. But prosperity has a price. The local doctors watch your success with growing fury. Their expensive treatments forgotten while villagers flock to your affordable remedies. What started as mild irritation quickly festers into dangerous resentment. They begin spreading whispers. How could an uneducated woman possess such knowledge? Surely no mere mortal could cure what learned physicians cannot. The whispers find fertile ground in the most absurd ways. Your neighbor's chickens wander into your medicinal herb garden and destroy 3 months of careful cultivation, including a patch of hemlock you use for pain relief. You shout curses and shoo them away, furious at the loss. Your neighbor comes running at the commotion, witnessing your rage as you chase his birds from your ruined plants. The next morning, all 12 birds are dead. Your neighbor accuses you of witchcraft, because obviously it couldn't have been the toxic plant they just devoured. The accusation spreads through the village like wildfire. At first, you think people will see reason. After all, these are your neighbors, your patients. But fear is stronger than gratitude. You watch neighbors you've known since childhood avoid your gaze, and something cold settles in your stomach. You can feel the ground shifting beneath your feet. What started as a petty dispute has turned into something far more dangerous. Suddenly, every successful treatment becomes evidence of dark magic. The fever you broke last winter when the blacksmith's son was near death for 3 days? Clearly supernatural. The breech birth you turned with your bare hands, saving both mother and child when everyone expected them to die. Obviously demonic intervention. The trial is a foregone conclusion. The doctors who've been resenting your success eagerly testify against you, claiming that no woman could possess such medical knowledge without diabolic assistance. Local politics play their part too. Your prosperity has made you a convenient target for those who resent a woman rising above her station. The evidence against you is overwhelming. You're an independent woman with medical knowledge. You own property. You've refused to remarry despite multiple suitors, and you've become too successful for your own good. Obviously, you must be in league with Satan. The sentence comes swiftly. At 40, you've gone from respected healer to condemned witch. They tie you to a stake in the village square where you once sold your remedies. The same people who bought your tonics and praised your healing skills now gather to watch you burn. As the flames begin to rise, you scan the crowd and see faces you recognize. Former patients you helped through fevers, difficult births, infected wounds. They watch with a mixture of fascination and horror, some crossing themselves, others turning away. The smoke rises, thick and choking, and in your final moments, you understand how quickly everything you built can turn to ash. That's your life as a medieval woman. You survive childhood, marriage, 5 pregnancies, then get barbecued for being too good at your job. Turns out there was no winning for a married woman in the medieval ages after all.